In this video, I'm going to show you something very quick and specific, which is how to remove the underlining from links. So normally when you look at a web page or when you look at a Twine game, which fundamentally is also a web page, you will see that the links have, as well as a special color of text usually, they'll also usually have underlining. But you may not want that because you may want it to sort of look less like a standard web page, I suppose. And I've done an example of that here. And I will now show you the code that does that. Now the code that does that is not in the passages, it is in the style sheet. And there's two things you have to do for it to work completely. And I'll just zoom in so we can read them more easily. So the first one will remove the underline when the link is just being displayed, and the second one will remove the underline when the link is hovered over. So if you just had this first one and not the second one, the link would have no underline until you put your mouse pointer over it, and then it would sort of get an underline. So the first one is A space curly brackets text dash decoration, that's TEXT dash DECORATION colon space NONE for none, semicolon, space, and then you close the curly brackets. The second one is almost exactly the same, except that instead of starting with just A, you go A colon hover or hover, A colon HOVER. And remember to distinguish colons from semicolons, because this has both colons and semicolons, and if you use the wrong one, it may not work. There's no difference in the layout. You'll notice that I've got this one on one line and I've got this one over several lines. That's not necessary. I could have done it thus. I could have put the A hover one just on one line, or I could have put this A one over several lines. It just seemed easier to do it that way. Doing it like that will have exactly the same result. It's the order of the characters that's the important thing. The carriage returns don't really make a lot of difference. So once again, it's A space curly bracket text dash decoration colon space NONE semicolon end curly bracket. That semicolon isn't strictly necessary. Those semicolons in this context, in style sheets, they're used to distinguish different commands within the same set of curly brackets. So if you had something else that you wanted to say about A, which is to say about links, you'd need that semicolon. But without, in this situation where there's only one thing within the curly brackets, you can eliminate the semicolon and it will still work. But I tend to follow the practice of not doing so, just because it's easy to just do the same thing each time so you don't make a mistake when you want to put two things in. So that's what it is for when the link is being normally displayed, and then it's exactly the same except it's A colon HOVER instead of just A when it's the link with the mouse pointer hovering over it. So the last thing I want to show you is where you would find this in the, because I've saved this little example program in case you want to look up the code or copy and paste the code. I've saved it in the Let's Make a Game zip file, which you can get from the link that I'll put in the description. And where would you find this if you were to download that? Well, I'll show you. You go in, and then you go into supplementary material, and then you go into changing text, and the one you want is links without underlines .html, and you can import that into your own version of Twine, or you can put that on the desktop and run it. There's not much to see when you do run it. It's just a sort of demonstration of a particular way to display text, but that will work. You'll also see, if you're interested in changing the underlining on a link, you might also be interested in changing the color. And you might see, you might notice when you're in this folder that there's another HTML file, which is a Twine program called text size and color. And that gives you commands that allow you to change what the title says, the text size and color. And I have covered that subject in a previous video, and I'll link to that previous video as well in the description.